We're not going to give up. This land is thirsting, and orthodoxy is the right message for these people. So what do? We gathered the clergy together with their bishop. We came up with a plan.
This is a very special interview. We'll all journey to Africa together with a team from OCMC to learn more of the evangelical outreach that is part of the world. Yes, there are Orthodox Christians there, and in many other places. So let's go there now to see and hear firsthand the work that is being accomplished with the grant that has been given to evangelize some villages that have never heard the gospel. Our first guest is Father Martin. Father Martin, you're the executive director of OCMC. Tell us about this outreach.
Father Chris, thank you so much. So good to be with you again. We've been working here now. I can't believe it's 15 years since we first started. We were on a journey trying to find places in the world where we would be the right person at the right time to introduce the gospel to people living in this modern day and era that still haven't heard about or who is Jesus Christ. We can see why. It's remote, it's isolated. You have people who have not been schooled and live in their villages according to their tribal customs that they've held for hundreds and thousands of years. And yet there is an opportunity here, and we are seeing that people are responding to the Christian message, and we see how that message is transforming lives. It's not that God was absent, because we understand God works everywhere at all times, but there is a fullness that comes when we know him through Jesus Christ and only through Jesus Christ. So we made 7 journeys to this region, and on each one of those journeys, we saw the miracles of God, mostly through rivers, each time filling with water on the night of our arrival or in the midst of our preaching after people had asked us to pray for rain. So much so that I think it was the 6th journey, we were sleeping in a dry riverbed out under the stars. There's no place out here. It's just open desert area. So we're sleeping in this dry riverbed, and people had descended on the area, and that's where we would be teaching them. In the middle of the night, everybody get up, move your tents, quick, the water's coming. And sure enough, we grabbed our tents, we pushed the car out of the sand, we got up to the sides of the riverbed just in time to see the water come. And within 15 minutes, it was a rapids running through the riverbed that we were sleeping in, to the point where somebody said, Father Martin, are you stupid? You've seen this happen 5 times already. You prayed for rain and you put your tents in the riverbed. What's wrong with you? Unfortunately, after these 7 journeys, we found that the villages that had been reached the time before weren't being visited. And what had happened is we'd overrun the capacity of the local clergy to go back to the new places that we were opening. So we took a pause and we came back and we said, all right, we're not going to give up. This land is thirsting, and orthodoxy is the right message for these people. So what do? We gathered the clergy together with their bishop. We came up with a plan. Number 1, let's go back to these villages that we haven't been visiting, because we took a few-year pause, and see, are they still ready to receive the gospel? 2, why aren't we reaching them? Well, we don't have the funds to go back to them, and we don't have the capacity. So what do? Here's the plan. We check out the villages. Then, if those villages are still ready, we will train people from each one of those villages. We're going to open up a training program here in the central location, ship everybody in, somebody from the bishop's office, together with people from all the 4 clergy that are here, will train leaders that go back, teach people what they're learning, and run the lay reader services on the weekends until somebody can be ordained. We figure a couple years of a program with them to be able to ordain people. The priests will visit, we'll fund them to visit once a month, and over these years we'll nurture the people. In each place we're going to build a simple structure that will be their church, and as well we'll start reaching out in these places to help the needs of the people. Already 2 wells have been built in a partnership with St. Paul's from Irvine, California, in the villages. So we send them out, Father.
Well, let me ask you this question, Father, because
Yeah.
you know, doing this kind of work, one would accept that you're on dry land there, obviously very dry land, but the people's hearts are not dry. So how did you find their acceptance of the message of the gospel that you and your team brought to them?
Well, good question. We sent them out. One was the priest was supposed to go to 4 communities. The other was supposed to go to 3 in order and over a period of 3 months to see, are the people still fertile and receptive to this message?
Mhm.
We come back to discuss with them, and they didn't have 7 communities. They said, well, okay, all those 7 ones, they're ready for you. And not only that, we've got 3 more. Can we please go to these 10 villages and establish orthodoxy? And I've just returned from Michael, from being out in that desert, driving over these difficult lands with nothing around us. We were surrounded by these tribal peoples singing with a joy, worshiping with us with a joy that you just don't see. There was a fullness. And I'm looking around the desert, I'm looking at these people and thinking, wow, with this relatively small investment, look at what has been made possible.
Father, tell us where exactly you are, because I sort of set the table when I said Africa, but give us a little more detail geographically before we go to Michael.
So we are in East Africa, in the country of Kenya. Right now, we're in Nairobi, having returned from the deserts, the semi-arid deserts in the north of Kenya, which is all near Lake Turkana, where they say is the first human is found. But it's all this region out there, which is just an expansive desert land that goes all the way up to the borders of South Sudan.
Let's go to Michael Kuziak. He's the vice president of the OCMC board. Mike, tell us about this effort in Kenya and what are your impressions? I think this is your first trip there.
It is my first time visit to Kenya. And first of all, thank you, Father Chris. It's wonderful to be with you. We've had a really amazing journey so far here in Kenya. And my overall impression would be that Orthodoxy is really alive and well in Eastern Africa. And we started our journey here in Nairobi, and we were able to go visit the Macaria Seminary, where His Eminence hosted us. And we just had an amazing time with 57 vibrant seminarians that are representing not just Kenya, but countries around Kenya, including Tanzania, Uganda, Sudan, and certainly Kenya itself. And it was just amazing to see this center of knowledge for these seminarians that are going to become priests and be distributed throughout Eastern Kenya. We then moved on to Bishop Neophotis and his diocese in Eldoret, and there we were greeted by hundreds of school children, where they consecrated a new library, and these kids were vibrant and excited and hearing the word of God and gaining the knowledge to really advance their lives. It really was truly amazing to see these schools in action. We also had a chance to visit with the OCMC translations team, which are taking all the liturgical books and translating them into all the various dialects of the various African languages, which is obviously critical to the church's growth in this area. Finally, Father Martin talked about it. Our trip to Turkana was nothing short of amazing. I mean, you're driving through the desert for an hour plus on what you wouldn't even consider to be a road. It's really a path. You have no idea how these drivers actually can find these villages. And we came upon this village with a well, and there we had 4 different tribes that had gathered together. Some of the tribes as far as 50 kilometers away, to greet the bishop and celebrate the divine liturgy. I can tell you this hierarchical divine liturgy was one of the most impressionable ones I've ever had in my life. And to see each of the tribes come in dancing and singing in their own culture to welcome the bishop and the church was nothing short of amazing. And there, these people are being ministered, body, soul, and mind, bringing water to them and bringing education to them and building churches for them. I mean, it really was remarkable to see. And this is an area of the world that is at the furthest corners of the world, if you will, and reaching these people that have never heard the gospel and bringing, this to them is truly an amazing experience. I encourage everybody to try and take some time and study what's going on out here with Orthodoxy and spend some time here in Kenya if you can.
Very good. Thank you, Mike. Thank you for that perspective. And thank you for that eyewitness experience. I think it's very important. It's another thing to read about it and even to see it on, let's say, television or one of the programs that might be on. But it's another thing to go there and live, like you say, that transformation of mind, body, and soul. Debbie Dillon is a benefactor who, with her husband, sponsored these most recent efforts in Turkana. Debbie, welcome to the program.
Hello.
I know you and your husband support the Mission Center work, and you're one of the supporters of the current work, as I mentioned, in Turkana. What has most impacted you as you've seen things for the first time?
I would say what really overwhelmed me was the love that they had for Christ and for the church as we were driving, even as we were driving up, and they've been waiting. They probably had to walk several hours just to get to where we were going to have the service. And, then they had to wait for us to come and we were delayed. And, they were waiting in the heat and the sun all that time. But as soon as they saw our vans driving up, they began their dancing and singing to greet the bishop. And it was just a beautiful, exciting thing to see how enthused they were to welcome us and to welcome the bishop especially. It's hard. It's a hard place, to live. And in America, we just don't understand that. We have no real concept of how hard it can be. And they just exuded that joy and excitement for being together and being with the church.
So you have, for lack of a better term, in the capitalistic world, you have invested in something that has greater rewards than just that which we see here on earth. Have you spoken to people individually? Have you had the opportunity to meet a father, a mother, a child, and hear from them sort of their first stories of this experience of the evangelical effort of OCMC?
I wasn't able to speak a whole lot with anybody individually. Language was a little bit of a barrier, especially out in the villages in Turkana. They don't speak English.
Right.
But they seem to really appreciate us and be really curious about us, and to be very thankful and kind to us. I mean, they were only kind to us, and yeah.
Beautiful. Well, thank you. Thank you for what you've done. And I hope your work will encourage others to invest, for using a better term, in this incredibly saving work of OCMC. I think it's wonderful. Dan Christopulos is the Director of Development for OCMC. We go back many years. Your main role is to raise funds and the awareness of the organization. How does this trip help achieve that goal? And give us the website, give us ways in which people can get behind you and sort of put fuel in the tank so you can do more.
Sure. And first of all, as always, Father Chris, thank you for letting us be on these programs in OCN. As you said, we partner, through the years. Most of our donors will never have the experience like Debbie just had or any of the other people on the trip with us. So they, as you mentioned, they invest, but they invest trusting us. They invest trusting that we are going to make sure that their money goes where it's supposed to go, that there's accountability, that we leverage the relationships we have to really get a better return on the investment that they ever could if they tried to do this on their own. So by having people like, Michael, who you interviewed today, and Debbie and others on the trip, they can really become the ambassadors for us back in their parishes and their areas, in the various things that they do, because these are all faithful Orthodox Christians. And we will never have the bandwidth to get the message out. So the more people come like this, they'll leave here on fire, and they'll have firsthand stories, and they'll digest and see why this is so important. So as you mentioned, the only way we can get this work done is through the faithful donors, not just of money, as Debbie and her husband have done, but the time commitment, like, Mike and the board and all of the others who volunteer. So certainly we need the financial resources, and people can, go online at www.ocmc.org and just donate. We can donate general. We have some specific types of projects people can support, especially here in Africa. There's the Support a Mission Priest program through the years, and that was one of our first programs where we give a small stipend through the bishops to their priests.
I remember
And
that.
we, really help the priests just have something consistent, even though it doesn't cover everything. Okay, so that's there. But just really general donations are really important. That gives us the latitude that we need to really see where can that money best make an impactful difference, because that's what it's all about. It's about changing people's lives. And that's actually what Debbie and Mike and all the people on this trip saw. They saw people that maybe as of January, here we're sitting in October, they were not Orthodox Christians. They'd never even heard the gospel. And yet we go to a village yesterday where 4 villages came together, celebrate the divine liturgy and an ordination of one of their own as the first deacon in the area. And to see them take communion from the bishop for the first time, it was just an overwhelming experience. That only happens with supporters who give of their time, give of their financial resources, and most importantly, give of their love for Christ in this tangible way. And so that's what we need.
Very good. Thank you so much, Father Martin, Dan, Debbie, and Mike, and everyone on the OCMC team. You are incredible people. My hat's off to all of you. We think about our hotels in America. We think about putting light bulbs in, and when a light bulb goes out, we get upset. And here you folks are sleeping in ditches, which used to be rivers. And you are bringing the river of life to people through Christ. And for us, that is an incredible inspiration. God bless you all. And thank you for doing what you're doing.
Thank you, Father Chris. God bless you.